Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and welcome to another live and free Rockfin exclusive. Now, I know a lot of you tuned in last night to watch the Klaus Schwab Great Reset piece where I brought Joey B up way before he was Zombie Joe. I shouldn't say way before, tail end of Joey B, beginning of Zombie Joe. I've watched a lot of his speech at Davos, the World Economic Forum, back in 2016 on what they call the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or the same thing that we highlighted in our video yesterday with Klaus Schwab. What a lovely German name, right? Klaus Schwab. Very, very powerful name, Klaus. Where he talks about our biological, physical, and digital identities merging. Sounds a lot like transhumanism. Sounds a lot like the singularity that they've been pushing. You know, all these different ideas about what reality is. That we live in a simulation or we live in the multiverse, in my opinion, are driving us towards this. And they'll just say that you're anti-science if you're not for it. It doesn't matter if instead of empowering the human species, it enslaves the human species. So, you know, in that broadcast last night, we showed you Justin Trudeau openly now talking about Agenda 2030, sustainability, preconceived agendas now having the opportunity to take place because of COVID 1984. And then I really just displayed to you, if you still think this is about a virus, you know, with Tony Fauci on Jake Tapper yesterday saying that, oh, even after you get the vaccine, I still think we should probably keep those social distancing and masking measures in place. Excuse me? Excuse me? If you think that our society, this country, or even the globe has a chance to go back to normal if we obey these people, you have no idea what you're talking about. You should just shut the fuck up right now. Okay? Like yesterday when I post the article about Tony Fauci talking about masks and social distancing post COVID 1984 vaccine, there's literally someone so brainwashed, so embedded, okay, in their political ideology, in their identity of left-right politics, conservative, liberal, someone who openly voted for and cheered for Joe Biden, not because they wanted that person, but it's because who the party put out. And they had such major Trump derangement syndrome that there was just nothing this person could do. He had colluded with the Russians. And these people have mush for brains. They have mush. Okay? They want to believe that they're politically active. They want to believe they're doing the right thing. But they don't want to do the research. They don't want to watch Joe Biden get up there and talk about automation and the inherent problems that come along with it. He actually talks about how this could widen the gap, okay, between the wealthy and the middle class and the poor. And while saying it, by the way, in 2016 is already telling you that that gap is extremely widened already through globalization. So we're just going to continue that same Leviathan-like process and things are going to get better for us, Joe? Yeah, Joe? And we just should listen to our dark overlords, Klaus Schwab and Tony Fauci and Bill Gates, who's been up on stage with Klaus for 22 years. Showed you some of that yesterday. And what's going to drive this 21st century, this fourth industrial revolution? Holding forums on it 22 years ago. Okay? So I want to kick it off with reiterating my point that Klaus Schwab is not your friend, okay? He's not your buddy. He's not your pal. He's not somebody that you should be, oh, you know what? This guy's got great ideas. This great reset that they're talking about, gravy train with biscuit wheels. No thank you, no mas, not going to happen. Because when he says stuff like this, And you don't realize, oh, sorry guys, and you don't realize this is about what I've been telling you is an automation nation, okay? A UBI agenda to get you on the dole and make you feel like the worthless eater they already believe you are, right? Sign on to every single one of their social programs until what? Until they can really push their total control, track, trace, database, medical, martial law, transhumanist agenda. Listen to this guy.
It's at the end, what the fourth industrial revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities.
Now, as I've said, no one elected Klaus Schwab. I didn't elect Klaus Schwab. You didn't elect Klaus Schwab. But the World Economic Forum, Davos, is kind of like a public forum for the Bilderberg agenda, right? It's a little bit more polished. It's not as secretive. It's almost like a CFR of sorts where they allow you in on a lot of these talks and forums. And it's really a mouthpiece that's spinning the best possible outcomes for an authoritarian agenda. Okay? Listen to what Trudeau had to say.
Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum on reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs. Canada is here to listen and to help. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
So there you go. This is an opportunity. We had these preconceived ideas. We want to reset the economy. We really like that Chinese social credit score. We've had our eye on that for some time. I won't say that here because there's a lot of bad press surrounding that. But that's the reality that we will live under if we do not push and shove back now. And I mentioned it yesterday, okay? And I can't emphasize it enough. When they're talking about your physical, your biological, okay, and your digital identity, right? Your magic box identity, you got your Xbox. I'm guilty of that. I know a lot of you got the Alexa and the home speaker, okay? When they're talking about that, they never mention anything about your spiritual identity, okay? And this isn't some Bible thumping nonsense. And I'm not even, I shouldn't call it nonsense. I'm just saying that I'm not here to push a religious agenda on you. But I do not believe that we're just, evolutionary meat puppets. I believe there's something special about human beings. I do believe that there's something inherent in us, whether you want to call that a soul or a moral compass, that will be utterly destroyed if we go along with this. And that is already tainted for what we have allowed, not only in this country, but throughout the world, via this authoritarian predator class. So let's do it. Let's get to Joey B. Okay? We're going to show you him and Klaus, best buddies, forever. And Joey B is going to tell you all about the automation nation that's coming. He's going to tell you he's a hard-working guy, and that he's like a they call him middle of the road Joe. It's classic Joey B. I do want to remind everybody that this Rockfin platform is what's keeping me alive, along with the GoFundMes. We've been fully demonetized on YouTube for 7+ months. We're doing exclusives here Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. If you're just coming across it, make sure that you're at least following me over here and you have the free account. I know if you're watching live, and part of this, obviously you do. Make sure to check out all the documentary films that I've made, and also go check out the YouTube as well. Later on today, we'll have Mixed Martial Mindset, and I'm also going to be having Dan Dix of Press for Truth on this afternoon. So please support the program. And with that being said, let's get into it. I almost want to skip over Klaus talking about how he was such a involved senator, and he used to come here and he'd take all these meetings. Another thing that Joe brags about in this is his awesome relationship with President Xi of China. Okay? So, I get it. Jones loves to talk about him being a Chi-Com agent. And obviously, there are things in that laptop of Hunter Biden's that show that Joey B is nothing more than your quintessential quid pro quo gangster. That's what politicians are. Gangsters. That's why we used to call him Joey B.
Mr. President, I want to thank you again for your hospitality when I landed at the airport. You were kind enough to be there, and we got a chance to speak. And I want to again publicly thank you for the incredible help your government has been in getting our people out of Iran. And we owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you. And Christine, before you leave, I may have to borrow some money if you're available. Every time I see Christine, the president of the IMF, every time I see her, she looks at me and says, I know Greece, I know Ukraine. I'm always calling her, but this time for a personal loan. We can talk about it later.
So, it's hilarious with all these aristocrats and puppets of aristocrats and predator class minions. He's talking about the International Monetary Fund and everybody's hamming it up. And by the way, you will see Joseph Biden stumble quite a lot here. This is the beginning in 2016, really, of the transition from slick Joey B that used to stumble every once in a while to Zombie Joe, where he can barely read off a teleprompter. Okay? He does stumble a lot in this one, nowhere near where he is today, but you do see the transition.
But you're doing a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous job. I really mean it. Thank you so much. You've never had more on your plate. The IMF had never had more on its plate than it does right now. And I think you're doing it, presumptuous of me to say, but I think you're doing a fabulous job. And Dr. Schwab, when we had dinner the other night, you and your wife, I asked you whether you ever anticipated 22 years ago, when you started this group, that it would ever grow as large and as consequential as it's become. I have made nine other trips to participate, and I've really resented the hell out of the fact Barack wouldn't let me come until tonight.
Oh, Joe's trying to crack jokes.
I'm only joking about that. That's a joke. But I think this is, quite frankly, a more convenient fora than the United Nations to meet with world leaders and business leaders. And it's a great opportunity to get an awful lot done. I've been asked to speak about this year's topic. And Dr. Schwab, I'm flattered you'd asked me to keynote. There's an expression in my old neighborhood back in the United States. This may be above my pay grade. It's not above yours, though. You've written extensively on the topic that you've asked me to speak to, mastering the fourth industrial revolution.
All right. So here's where it's important. Joey B is acknowledging that Klaus Schwab and his agenda of this fourth industrial revolution are something that has been pushed now for many, many years, that the World Economic Forum is as powerful, if not more powerful, than the United Nations, right? The Trojan horse globalist government agency that's not a government agency at all. Okay, that's rife with corruption, and everybody knows it. But it's a consolidation of power. And again, Joe, knows exactly what he's about to discuss. Now, that doesn't mean that he's, I took Klaus Schwab and I compared him to Kissinger yesterday because they're the same type of person, only Klaus Schwab is a little bit more vocal, right? He's hitting the podium a little bit more. Whereas, Kissinger will give you an interview here or there, but he's not the director of these type of forums. But they're all about globalization. They're all about full spectrum dominance. And believe you me, they're all about a new world order.
This fora defines that as change fueled by a digital revolution. Technologies emerging and intersecting at exponential speed and scale, dramatically increasing and improving productivity and economic growth, and creating, God willing, better jobs and entirely new industries. But there are two questions, it seems to me, that we have to address forthrightly at the outset. First, will this revolution actually transform the global economy? And secondly, if it does, will it be for the better or for worse for humanity as a whole?
I guess it really depends on what you consider humanity as a whole. If you think that the majority of humanity are useless eaters and that we're populated and that we need good guys clubs full of billionaires like George Soros, Warren Buffett, Ted Turner, and Michael Bloomberg, oh yeah, and Bill Gates, to tell us how to regulate that, I'd say that's bad news brown, Joe. I'd say that's not great for humanity. But tell me why it's going to be awesome.
On the first question, there are some serious experts, some of you in the audience, who say that the technological advances we see are impressive, but mostly inconsequential to the overall economy. Some of you argue that they won't lead to greater productivity or better jobs or wages for workers. For developed countries, the argument goes, a sluggish economic growth will be the new normal. And so,
notice how we talked about the new normal being sluggish economic growth as this technology enhances. And that really is what we've seen. Until Trump came in, it was sluggish economic growth. And this isn't to like pump up Trump or MAGA forever. That's not what we're doing here. No. But he did take away a lot of the restrictions. He did lower taxes. People had more money in their pockets. Again, do you think that a record number of men of color voting for Trump this year had to do with anything else other than the economic situation? I'm sure there were smaller factors out there. I'm sure there were some people that were fed up with the media constantly lying to them, okay? But at the end of the day, what do people tell you about elections? It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy.
Oh, get used to it. But I think those who have that view are mistaken. I think we're already seeing how digital advances are not only impressive, but also consequential for all of our economies. Automated warehouses and assembly lines drastically improve productivity. Ride-sharing companies employ tens of thousands of new people. I met with the CEO today of one of those companies saying he's going to add 2 million new jobs this year.
So let's talk about that. Automation is the first thing he's talking about. What have I been hammering home about this whole COVID-19 84 pandemic, whatever you want to call it, pandemic, crisis? It's about an automation nation. And you notice he talked about the rideshare companies. Well, what have the rideshare companies done? Well, they've made it, and he's going to say it's great. These people get to work when they want. They're in control of their own lives. That's not true. They're making less wages. They're having to work more hours. Okay, and by the way, they're being now instructed. Actually, it shouldn't say instructed. It's being demanded upon them that they must mask up at Uber. And not only that, not only must they mask up, but the customers have to send them a selfie of being masked up or they won't even pick them up. Transhumanist agenda in play, anyone? And he's going to say, this is great. We love it. Automation Nation in those Amazon factories, don't worry, you're going to need less and less humans to do things in that factory alone, let alone all these other production facilities. So it won't be just some propaganda you see on television where this woman is telling everybody what a hero she is and how she loves her job, stopping people and making them take their temperatures and taking their thermal imagery when they come to work. We're already there. We're already total slavery in a lot of these factories via an automation nation transhumanist agenda. where you're perceived as a possible virus and not a human being, and you can't see somebody's facial expressions.
Allowing them freedom to work as many hours as they wish, manage their own lives as they wish. Yesterday, I met with the world's leading cancer specialists assembled here at Davos to talk about how we all agreed we're at an inflection point in the fight against cancer. We're on the cusp of many new and anticipated breakthroughs enabled by enormous advances in computing power, big data sharing in real time, a billion calculations per second that allow for early diagnosis, vaccines on the horizon to potentially prevent cancer, personalized life-saving treatments.
Know what he just said there? Personalized life-saving treatments. First of all, do you think that the predator class is concerned about curing your cancer? Do you think that's coming to somebody with a, I don't know, bank account of less than a few $1,000,000? Maybe even more than that? Do you think that's coming to the average family making $50K a year or $100K a year? You think that's coming to the third world for you? You notice how he talked about in real time already calculations and big data because we're already there. I know a lot of you by now have seen that Social Network documentary. So it's not just crazy Jason Burmis telling you about a track trace database society all the way back in 2008, putting it in a film in 2010 and trying to explain this to you. This guy right here in 2016 is explaining it to you. He's telling you about the vaccines. He's telling you about personalized treatment because they want your fucking DNA. They want to know everything they possibly can about you. And if you think that they're going to tailor something to you that helps you because they have all this data, well, you're a more trusting person than I am. I tend not to trust a predator class hell-bent on eugenics and a one world order.
Bringing us one step closer to ending cancer as we know it. On the second question, I believe on balance, these transformations are changes for the good for average people around the world. They bring exciting new choices to consumers, new kinds of jobs, hopefully.
We're hoping they're going to have new types of jobs. Yeah, that's why we're discussing universal basic income. Okay? That's why our economy is going to be locked down, right, Joe? That's why Tony Fauci's up there just smiling away that they want to install you, Joe. And today's the day that we're going to see whether the Trump administration has any teeth in this fight via the election. They're supposed to present some of their information and evidence today. Sidney Powell, the lawyer, has been kind of canvassing the television and radio scene over the last week or so, saying she wouldn't be saying things unless she had the evidence. So it remains to be seen. But this guy is already saying, we'll lock it down. We'll lock it down. We'll mandate masks. His buddy Andrew Capo Cuomo is sitting there with glee, talking about being the first COVID-free state, but in the same breath, warning you about a Trump vaccine. He ain't going to warn you about a Biden vaccine, okay?
That are good paying for workers. Market makes services more affordable. Astounding breakthroughs in science that are going to save lives, and physical sciences that will unleash entire new industries. But these changes come with real peril, and they require us to be proactive at the front end of this. For how will the warehouse worker who used to ship your order, or the salesman who used to take it, now make a living when he or she is no longer needed in that venture?
Now, if you think about it, for about 95+% of us, there is no salesman. Okay, there is no salesman. I'd say it might even be a little bit higher than that, but that's for the average person. In all sorts of hospitality industries, they send somebody in. You know, running a bar was a great experience for me to understand how that worked. So I would have, 4 or 5 beer distributors at a time and at least 2 liquor distributors, and they would come in and they would try to pitch you this or that, and you could get this deal if you hit that mark. And really, that's the only type of salesperson you see today. Yeah, you can go to a Genius Bar or Best Buy and there'll be someone on the floor to help you out. Sure, in the physical brick and mortar stores, but with so much shifting over to the Amazons and the online stores of the world, most of those sales jobs are gone. Remember the days that they used to advertise stuff on television all the time? You still get those with like the little flashlight or some kind of new fryer, but it was much bigger then. And then you would get on the phone and you would talk to somebody. And yes, they still target that towards the older population that may not be as tech savvy. But if you are buying something off TV, chances are you're buying it online. And chances are, let's say you're getting a MyPillow or something like that, you're probably going through Amazon. Okay? And when people's factory jobs start drying up more and more, because they already are, what happens? Well, you create situations where people like who are working for Amazon are pissing in bottles on the floor so they don't take bathroom breaks because there's already an artificial intelligence system running that's going to decide whether you have a job or not. They will fire you through that AI system. You know, a lot of people are probably going to say that's Jason. That's like 2 years old. Okay, let's do it live. Okay. Amazon worker pees in bottle. Oh, look at that. An investigator. Amazon workers pee in bottles to save time. Look at, how about that? That's what we need in this industrial revolution, Joe. And to bring it back, Amazon workers, fired by AI. How Amazon automatically tracks and fires warehouse workers. That one's a year old, okay? So if you don't understand, right now we are living in the midst of this transition, and it has been accelerated by eviscerating the middle class, by locking them out of their businesses, and even the ones that are allowed to open are making less and less money because people have less and less money to spend. Meanwhile, Walmart's doing great. The billionaires are making money and consolidating power, just as I predicted as this happened. I said, you know what, no matter what you think about this, whether, this virus is deadly or it's not, anything, okay, they're going to use this to consolidate power, and they have, and they have, and they have.
Does greater work flexibility mean fewer worker protections? What are the consequences, practical and moral, of scientific advances that allow us to manipulate the building blocks of life itself, to cure defects and diseases in utero?
They don't want your DNA. And you notice how he talked about how at the tail end there, are they going to get less benefits? Of course they're going to get less benefits. Of course they are. People are working on those Amazon floors $15 an hour or less. Okay? Slaving away, pissing in bottles, trying to hit a quota for their artificial intelligence overlords. But when we talk about a technopoly, when we talk about transhumanism, when we talk about an automation nation and a transhumanist agenda, oh, now we're going to go in utero. And it all sounds great, right? Well, Jason, if I was going to have a son that wasn't going to be able to walk right, or was going to have this disability or that disability, and then go in and fix it, I want them to. Do you think they're going to do that, or they're going to tell you to euthanize it? What do you really believe? Do you think that's going to be something that's available for you and I? Or is that going to be something available to what? Zombie Joe's overlords. And remember, this is the tail end of Joey B. Still pretty cognizant here.
And will that medical science and capability be available to all people because the cost is consequential? Will we end up creating more of a two-tiered society than exists today?
It's exactly what I roll with in Shade the Motion Picture. The gradual resurfdom of the masses. okay? That two-tiered society, that eugenics-based society where, yes, there is an elite class that rules over us, the plebs.
The point I'd like to make tonight is that these perils exist regardless of what we call this digital revolution, and regardless of whether you think it will be, on the whole, transformative for the economy or not. For I believe the underlying question for world leaders, civil society, academia, the media, for all of us, goes to what President Obama and I referred, was referenced by Klaus a moment ago, to what we believe is the defining challenge of our time. And that is, how do we ensure wide access to a middle class, which is being hollowed out in the 21st century?
Which is being hollowed out. 4 years ago, he's admitting that globalization is hollowing out the middle class. They're making us a debtor nation. They want you less and less sustainable so that when they roll out a UBI that comes with all these strings attached, you don't have a choice in your mind because you've got to pay the mortgage. You've got to have a nice car. You've got to send your kids to this school. You've got to travel on the airways. You've got to take that Uber where they want the mask selfie.
It is true, as some of the American press here know, in the United States I'm referred to as middle-class Joe. In Washington, that's not meant as a compliment. It means I'm not sophisticated. But I'm not making a populist case. This is not about class warfare.
But it is.
It's about the shared economic well-being and global security. It's something we should all care about, and that we can all do something about. Let me start by defining what I believe to be middle class. I have a number of really bright economists who work for me. When I first got to the White House, I'd say middle class, they'd say, in American terms, $50,240 or $51,500. It's not a number. It's a value set. It's an idea.
By the way, up until this moment, I agree with him. It isn't a number for the middle class because, there could be somebody who's making that 50 grand. Maybe they're even a single parent and they're doing okay. You know what? They live in a nice neighborhood. They have the amenities. They are able to save a little bit. They do have decent insurance. But, again, $50,000 for one person, he's talking about a family income. Okay? And now if we're talking about people making $25,000 a year, that's not livable. Okay? And it is a value set, and it is rolling in America, right? For instance, I just moved from New York over to Iowa. My rent is actually more expensive here in what is much more of a city area. I'm in the Quad Cities than where I was in upstate New York. But then the overall cost of living, gas and other things is lower, okay? And then my value set is, all right, I lived in a nice neighborhood in Oneonta. I live in a really nice neighborhood here. In Oneonta, because of the dictatorial powers there now, the only thing I can get to eat after 10 p.m. if it's outside of a gas station is McDonald's. Disgusting, okay? Horrific. Yuck. If I want to go to a bar in New York, I'm masked up. I can't talk to anybody. I can't get up out of my seat without putting a mask on. They're closing at 10 p.m. They're not even open past 10 p.m. anymore. If I want to go to a bar here, I walk a mile down the road and everybody's acting like a normal person. There's no plexiglass, no masks, and things are normal. Now, obviously, we're in this weird subset now. But I agree here that the middle class is an idea. It's not a number. Can you live comfortably? Can you have your needs met, save, and pass that on to your children? Okay, but that's not what this is really about. He's going to give you the old George Carlin line, really. Remember George Carlin saying, if you believe in the American dream, you have to be asleep, right? Well, that's basically it. He's going to tell you that you have to sell these people on hope for a better tomorrow, which they have time and time again through their forked tongue lies while they hollow out the middle class. And that's something Zombie Joe's not going to tell you.
It's a belief in possibilities. I've spent a lot of time with President Xi of China because he and President Hu and President Obama early on, when he was vice president, suggested we should get to know one another. So according to our staffs, I've had 24, 25 hours of private dinners with him.
All right. So we got to highlight this too, right? The current president of China. This is 4 years ago. We're talking about Joe Biden talking about taking a full day's worth of dinners with him. A full day's worth of dinners with this guy. Now, obviously, you can say that's only one day. No, that's like 20 plus meetings, bare minimum. Bare minimum. And he's going to tell you, he likes Xi. Pretty smart guy.
He's a very bright and determined guy. Oh. We were sitting in Chengdu 2 years ago, and he looked at me and said, "Can you define for me America?" And I said, "Yes, I can do it in one word. But I can actually define middle class in one word. Possibilities."
Hopium.
It's about possibilities. The possibility of achieving a decent life and the dignity and respect that comes with a good job. That it's possible for anyone willing to work hard to achieve it.
Now, let me say this. I still, to this day, heavily believe that that possibility not only lies here in the United States, but globally. That doesn't mean that every single place is going to give you the same opportunities. I'm not going to have the same opportunities in a third or second world nation, okay? In a first world nation, however, whether it be somewhere in Europe or somewhere here in the United States or Canada, I do believe that if you work hard, you can get through obstacles. That's a reality. Now, you've got to work harder and harder and harder and harder to even get to or maintain that middle class stability that he talked about. Okay? But the bottom line is that's the human spirit. That's not just America. I'm sure the same rings true in China. That if you are ingenuitive and you are hardworking, you can find a way out. We've seen that time and time again in this in this country. The story of somebody coming from nothing and overcoming adversity to have something. Okay? But what we're really talking about is how do you give hopium to the masses as you bring in an automation nation, a track, trace, database, social credit score society? That's the reality.
My dad, who was a gracious gentleman, having been displaced in the 50s after World War II because industry died where we were living in Northeast Pennsylvania, and it was growing in Southeast Pennsylvania and Delaware. I had to go looking for a better job. And my siblings and I heard from our entire years of growing up, he would say, "Joey, a job is about a lot more than a paycheck."
And you notice that was one of his, tried talking points during the election, right? A job is more than a paycheck. It's a man's identity. Only here, although he's slowing down a little bit, again, you're seeing little shades of Zombie Joe. There's still a lot of Joey B here, okay?
It's about your dignity. It's about your self-worth. It's about your place in the community. And it matters. It matters. Because he believed, as most of you do, that every single human being is entitled to be treated with dignity.
He believes, as most of you do. Just the fact that he would acknowledge there are people out there in that group at the World Economic Forum that couldn't really give a fuck about human beings in that kind of passive-aggressive statement, I mean, should be alarming, but that's a throwaway comment for most people.
And be given an opportunity. There used to be a basic bargain in industrial countries for the last 100 years or so. If you contributed to the success and profitability of the enterprise with which you worked, you got to share in the profitability. You got to share in the benefits.
That's not true. That is not true throughout American history. Again, this is almost like the frosting on the cake. Sure, you start looking at stock options and you start looking at the 80s in America and even the 90s where you were joining these companies and you were kind of investing in the company. That did not ring true throughout America coming up. Say that, tell me that's how that we put together the railroad system. Tell me we haven't used slave labor in this country. Tell me that the meat factories weren't exposed by the jungle in Upton Sinclair. Tell me we didn't have to make child labor laws because we were exploiting those kids. So, again, Joey B putting a spin on it.
That bargain has been broken through no fault of any single enterprise or any segment of society, but it has been broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's no one's fault, though.
There's a gap. The last 4 decades is growing between productivity and wages. That's real. Resulting, at least in my country and some of yours, in stagnation. And the reason I talk so much about the middle class is I firmly believe that a thriving and growing middle class has been the main reason for economic stability, political stability, and social stability in our democracies.
Really? Then how did it get hollowed out, Joe? Huh? How did the stagnation happen, Joe?
It is the fiber that holds us together. When the middle class does well, the wealthy do very well, and the poor have a ladder up. That's been the case not only in my country, but all around the world for generations. And in those societies where there has been no worker protections, no access to education, no rule of law to confront corruption, no courts of law to adjudicate contract disputes, it has been very difficult to generate a thriving middle class, and therefore they have not generated thriving economies. I'll mention this a little bit later, but it all comes back to countries and companies giving people a fighting chance to get into the middle class, to still believe in possibilities. Many of you believe that the reason for a hollowing out of the middle class has been the rapid globalization and skill-based change, which is true. It's contributed.
Which is true. You believe this, and it's true. The thing is that throughout this, as he continues to propose, hope and a middle class, he keeps telling you it's been hollowed out. And he sits there and talks about corruption. Do you think that the corporations that are in this country are held accountable when they're corrupt? Maybe with a slap in the wrist, they're certainly never criminally held accountable, no matter how monstrous their crimes are. So what are you talking about, zombie?
Both of which have resulted in declines of organized labor, bargaining capability, and quite frankly, changes in corporate governance. In the United States, I come from the corporate capital of the world.
You do?
Delaware. More corporations are incorporated in my state than any other state in the United States of America.
And you notice that that's like the longest smile and smirk he had on. You want to know why Zombie Joe's been in office for so long? Okay, 40 plus years. Okay, because he was put there. He was put there because a lot of companies, because of their tax laws, are set up in Delaware. That's how he got to be a player in Washington, and he knows it. Look at the smirk on his face.
I've watched the change. There's nothing malevolent about it, but there's real change.
No, nothing malevolent. No.
The fundamental change that has been taking place over the last 4 decades is a divergence between productivity and wages, at least in my country. For after World War II to the mid-'70s, productivity and wages moved in lockstep. That began to change in the mid-'70s. Over the last 4 decades, we've seen wages not keep up with productivity. The result is paychecks have stagnated despite rising national income and advances in technology. And I would argue in all of our countries has generated some political unrest and given voice to political elements that heretofore had not had much credence. So I say to all of you tonight that the digital revolution has the potential to exacerbate this breakdown and further hollow out the middle class.
Of course it does. That's the plan, the potential. That's the plan, Joe.
Not just in America, but around the world. Automation might mean higher paying jobs for the manager of the trucking company with driverless trucks, but tens of thousands of truckers will be without a job.
And now we're seeing the implementation of 5G, which is making that very thing possible. Guys, we only played about 18 minutes of this bad boy. Okay, we only played about 18 minutes of a almost hour-long talk by Zombie Joe. And Ryan Christian's in the house. How we doing? Keep up the great work, Jason. Did he just say lockstep? I believe so. And again, anybody can look this stuff up. I want to thank my audience for sending me that World Economic Forum speech on the Fourth Industrial Revolution via Zombie Joe. We may play other excerpts later today on the program over at the YouTube channel, but I've got to show you guys again. These people are patient, okay? That's why Bill Gates is sitting there at the World Economic Forum in 1998 talking about the 21st century economy, okay? The same exact thing 22 years ago with Klaus Schwab. Again, neither one of these guys is elected. It doesn't matter. They've got minions like Joey B that they can get elected to pass policy. So they're telling you it's a great reset. They're telling you it's a 2030 agenda. They're telling you you're going to mask up and social distance even after a vaccine. The New York State Bar Association is telling you it will be mandatory. They're not asking. This isn't permission-based. They are telling you. So you need to tell them no. 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 Guys, thumbs the video up. Share the channel with folks. Let them know that Rockfin is an actual free speech platform. And remember, you can not only support me with Rockfin with a premium membership. I'm thankful for all you guys that have signed up with the free memberships. And by the way, there's a lot of great free content out there from Ryan Christian, The Last American Vagabond, Derek Bros, Whitney Webb, The Convo Couch, Nico House, Slow News Day, and so many others here that I hope that you are checking out Rockfin. If you appreciate what I do, guys, $5, $10, $15, it means the world to me. Big donors, thank you so much. We're actually on pace to maybe hit our goal for the first time in, I think, like 5 or 6 months, which would be amazing. Again, Rockfin. If you're watching this on a rebroadcast, okay? If you're watching this on a rebroadcast and you're not signed up, we're doing it live, 11 a.m., 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, free. And then we leave it up there for at least 24 hours. So please make that account. Check out the documentary films for free. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World, Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. And again, let's make it 60,000 strong, 75,000 strong, 100,000 strong before they arbitrarily take me off of the largest video platform in the world with selective enforcement and no explanation whatsoever. We're prepared for it, but we're going to go kicking and screaming. I love you guys. It's not about left or right. It is about right and wrong. We'll see you tomorrow.